In the dead of night, my remote cabin in northern Montana shuddered under a violent pounding. It was a slow, bone-chilling rhythm. Not the wind, not a wild beast. When I swung that door open, I came face to face with a living nightmare. A massive, dark shadow standing over 8 feet tall. A Sasquatch. My hand locked on the doorframe. My breath vanished from my lungs. Every instinct in my body screamed to run. What that creature did next defied every rule of fear and survival I had ever learned. My name is Jack Mercer, and I'm about to tell you the one story I never thought anyone would believe. I'm 71 years old, spent 43 of those years as a fire lookout in the Cabinet Mountains. I've seen grizzlies tear apart elk carcasses. I've watched wolverines take down prey twice their size. I know what predators look like when they're hunting. This wasn't that. The knocking had started around 2 a.m. I'd been reading by lamplight, half asleep in my chair, when the first impact hit the door. Not a scratch, not a slam. A deliberate, measured thud, like someone testing the weight of the wood itself. Then another, and another. Each one spaced exactly 5 seconds apart. I grabbed my Winchester from above the mantel, hands steadier than I expected. The cold bit through my flannel shirt as I crossed the room. Through the fogged window, I could make out a shape, tall, impossibly tall, standing motionless in the silver moonlight. It didn't move like anything I'd ever tracked. I cracked the door 6 inches, rifle barrel leading. "Back off," I said, voice low and firm. The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it exhaled, a long, deliberate breath that clouded the freezing air between us. Then it did something I'll never forget. It stepped backward, into the light. I got my first clear look at it then. Broad shoulders covered in dark, matted fur. Arms that hung past its knees. A face that was both human and not. Flat nose, deep-set eyes that caught the lamplight and reflected it back like an animal's. But it was the eyes that stopped me cold. They weren't wild. They weren't empty. They were watching me, calculating. The creature made a sound, low, rhythmic, almost like a series of controlled grunts. It glanced toward the tree line, then back at me. Then again. Tree line, me. Tree line. I'd seen that behavior before. Wolves do it when they're signaling a pack. Ravens do it when they found carrion and want to lead you to it. This thing was trying to tell me something. My grip on the rifle loosened slightly. Not because I wasn't afraid, I was terrified, but because I recognized what I was seeing. This wasn't a threat. It was a signal. The creature turned slowly, deliberately, and began walking toward the forest. After 10 paces, it stopped, looked back over its shoulder, waiting. I should have slammed that door, should have locked it, loaded extra shells, maybe even radioed down to the ranger station. But something in the way it moved, patient, purposeful, made me hesitate. In 43 years, I'd learned to trust my gut in the wilderness, and my gut told me this wasn't an attack. I don't know why I did what I did next. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the old fire lookout instinct, the need to investigate, to know what's happening on your mountain. Or maybe, deep down, I knew something was very wrong out there in the dark. I stepped off my porch, rifle in hand, and followed a Sasquatch into the night. The snow crunched under my boots, each step louder than I wanted it to be. The creature moved through the forest like it weighed nothing, despite its massive frame. No broken branches, no disturbed undergrowth, just smooth, deliberate motion through terrain that would have shredded my knees in daylight. I kept 20 yards back, rifle ready but lowered. Not aimed, not yet. Every 30 seconds or so, it would stop, turn its head just enough to confirm I was still there, then continue forward. It was leading me somewhere specific. The thought should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, I felt something else, something I didn't understand then and still struggle to explain now. A strange, uncomfortable certainty that if this thing wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. We moved deeper into the forest, away from any trail I recognized. The moonlight barely penetrated the canopy here. My breath came in short, visible bursts. The cold was working its way through my jacket, but I barely noticed. I was too focused on the shape ahead of me. At one point, the creature paused near a massive Douglas fir and placed one hand, not paw, against the bark. It stood there for a long moment, head tilted, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. Then it made that sound again, the low, rhythmic vocalization, softer this time, almost cautious. That's when I realized we weren't alone out here. Something else was moving through these woods tonight, and whatever it was, this creature was aware of it. The terrain started to slope downward. My boots struggled for purchase on the icy ground. The Sasquatch navigated it effortlessly, occasionally glancing back, not at me, but past me, scanning the darkness behind us, checking if we were being followed. My pulse quickened. I'd been so focused on the creature in front of me that I hadn't considered what might be behind me. I resisted the urge to turn around. In the wilderness, showing your back to unknown threats is how you die. We descended into a narrow ravine, the kind that floods violently during spring melt. The creek bed was frozen now, covered in a thin sheet of ice that cracked under my weight. The creature stopped at the edge of a small clearing, and that's when I heard it. Breathing, labored, wet, struggling. The Sasquatch stepped aside, and I saw her. Another one. Smaller, maybe 7 feet tall, slumped against a fallen log. Even in the darkness, I could see the steel trap clamped around her lower leg. The chain was anchored to a tree root, and she'd clearly been fighting it. The snow around her was churned into a dark, muddy mess, but it was the smell that hit me hardest. Chemical. Acrid. Wrong. Poison. Illegal trappers use it sometimes, coat the trap mechanism with diluted strychnine or antifreeze to weaken anything that gets caught. Makes the animal easier to finish off later. Foam ringed her mouth. Her breathing was shallow, erratic. Her eyes, half closed, glassy, tracked my movement with effort. She was dying. The male Sasquatch made a low sound, almost a whine, and moved closer to her. He touched her shoulder gently, then looked at me. Really looked at me. And I understood. He hadn't brought me here to attack. He'd brought me here because she needed help. And somehow, he'd figured out that humans were the only ones who could remove a human trap. My hands shook as I lowered the rifle completely, leaning it against a nearby tree. "All right," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "All right. Let me see." I approached slowly, hands visible. The male stepped back but didn't leave. He positioned himself between me and the forest, watching both of us. I knelt beside her. The trap was a commercial-grade leg hold, the kind that's illegal in Montana for exactly this reason. The jaws had penetrated deep into the muscle. Blood had frozen around the wound in dark, crystalline patterns. Her eyes found mine. There was pain there, fear, but also something else. Something that made my throat tighten. Awareness. She knew I was trying to help. I pressed my fingers against the trap's spring mechanism, testing the tension. It would take both hands and significant force to open it, force I wasn't sure I had in me at 71. That's when I heard it. Distant, echoing through the frozen forest. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Wood knocks, deliberate, rhythmic, coming from multiple directions. The male Sasquatch's head snapped up. His entire body went rigid, every muscle tensed. He made a sound I hadn't heard before, a low, guttural warning that vibrated in my chest. Something was out there, and whatever it was, it terrified even him. The wood knocks stopped as suddenly as they'd started. The silence that followed was worse. I'd heard wood knocks before. Researchers claimed Sasquatch used them to communicate across distances. But these were different. Too evenly spaced, too methodical. Almost like someone was mapping the forest, triangulating a position. Our position. The male moved closer to the injured female, placing himself directly between her and the direction of the sounds. His breathing had changed, faster, sharper. His eyes swept the tree line in quick, jerking movements. He was afraid. And that scared me more than anything else that night. I turned my attention back to the trap, fingers working faster now. The metal was ice cold, biting into my skin even through my gloves. I wedged my boot against the base for leverage and pulled with everything I had. The spring mechanism didn't budge. "Come on," I hissed through gritted teeth. Sweat ran down my spine despite the cold. The female made a sound, soft, almost questioning. Her eyes were still on me, but they were unfocused now, rolling slightly. The poison was progressing. Her breathing had become more labored, each exhale rattling in her chest. I didn't have much time. I repositioned my hands, searching for better grip. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The trap wasn't just embedded in muscle. The chain had been deliberately wrapped around the tree root. Twice. Secured with a carabiner. This wasn't an accidental catch. Someone had prepared this, set it specifically for something large, something intelligent enough to trigger it while investigating. These trappers knew exactly what they were hunting. A branch cracked somewhere to my left. Close, maybe 40 yards. The male's head whipped toward the sound. He dropped into a lower stance, arms slightly extended. I'd seen gorillas do something similar in documentaries, making themselves look bigger, ready to charge. But he didn't vocalize, didn't roar or beat his chest. He stayed absolutely silent, tactical, controlled, predatory. For the first time since leaving my cabin, I truly understood what I was dealing with. This wasn't some gentle forest giant from a nature documentary. This was an apex predator, smart, powerful, and right now, cornered. And I was kneeling 3 feet away from his injured mate. My hand slowly moved toward my rifle, still propped against the tree. I didn't grab it, didn't even touch it, just positioned myself where I could reach it if needed. The male's eyes flicked to me, to the rifle, back to the darkness. He knew what I was thinking. Another sound, this time from the right. Footsteps, heavy boots crunching through frozen undergrowth. Human footsteps. Then voices, low, muffled. At least 2 people, maybe 3. Trail goes cold here. Check the trap line. Something big hit the number 7. Trappers. Illegal ones, judging by the late hour and remote location. Coming to check their catch. The male Sasquatch's breathing changed again. Slower now. Deeper. His muscles coiled like springs, ready to release. He was going to attack them. And if he did, if he killed those men, they'd come back with hunting parties, with helicopters and thermal imaging. They'd turn these mountains into a war zone. Both of these creatures would die. I made a choice I still question. I stood up slowly, hands visible, and locked eyes with the male. Then I pointed at myself, at him, at the injured female. I pressed my finger to my lips. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Let me handle this. I don't know if he understood. Don't know if creatures like him even can understand human gestures. But he stepped back into the shadows, disappeared so completely it was like he'd never been there at all. I grabbed my rifle, checked the safety, and started walking toward the voices. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to run the other direction. But if those trappers found the female, they'd kill her. Probably mount her head on a wall somewhere, sell the body to some private collector. I'd spent 43 years protecting these mountains. I wasn't about to stop now. The voices grew clearer as I climbed out of the ravine. I could see flashlight beams cutting through the trees ahead, 3 of them, moving in a loose search pattern. I chambered around. The sound echoed through the forest. The flashlights froze. "Montana Fish and Wildlife," I called out, voice hard and steady. A lie, but one that might save lives. "You're on federal land with illegal trap equipment. Put your hands where I can see them." The longest 10 seconds of my life followed. Then one of them laughed. A cold, ugly sound. "Fish and Wildlife doesn't patrol at 3 a.m., old man, and they sure as hell don't work alone." The flashlight started moving again, toward me. I raised the rifle to my shoulder, finger resting beside the trigger guard. Behind me, somewhere in the darkness of that ravine, something massive moved through the brush. Silent as death, waiting. 3 flashlight beams converged on me. I kept the rifle steady, aimed at the center mass of the closest light. My fingers stayed off the trigger. Always stay off the trigger until you're ready to kill. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. "That's far enough," I said. The light stopped about 20 yards out, close enough that I could see silhouettes now. 3 men, all carrying rifles of their own. The one in the middle was built like a truck, heavy winter gear, broad shoulders. He was the one who'd laughed. "You lost, old-timer?" His voice carried that particular edge of a man who decided he was the biggest threat in any room. "Long way from any ranger station. Could say the same about you." I kept my tone neutral, calm. "Trapping season's closed. Has been since November." "We're not trapping." The one on the left spoke up, younger voice, nervous. "Just hiking. Heard something in the woods." "At 3 in the morning?" Couldn't sleep. The lie hung in the frozen air between us. We all knew it was a lie. They knew, I knew. But I also knew something they didn't. Behind me, in that ravine, a 7-foot-tall creature was bleeding out in one of their traps. And her mate, 8 feet of muscle and intelligence, was watching this entire exchange from the shadows. If shooting started, we'd all die tonight. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, adjusting my stance slightly. Old knees were starting to protest the cold. "You 3 are going to walk back the way you came. I'm going to forget I saw you. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to report illegal trap equipment in this sector." The big one in the middle tilted his head. "You threatening us?" "I'm offering you a way out that doesn't involve federal charges." A pause. Wind moved through the pines above us, shaking loose small cascades of snow. Then I heard it, so faint I almost missed it. A low, barely audible growl from the ravine behind me. The male was still there, still watching, and he was not happy about these men being this close. The big trapper heard it too. His flashlight beam twitched slightly to my left, trying to see past me. "What was that?" "Grizzly, probably," I said quickly. "They don't hibernate as deep as people think. You boys really want to be stumbling around in the dark with a hungry bear nearby? It wasn't a grizzly. We all knew it wasn't a grizzly, but it gave them an exit that didn't involve admitting they were doing something illegal. The younger one on the left shifted his weight. Maybe we should... Shut up, Kyle. The big one cut him off, but I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. 3 of them. 1 of me. Numbers were on their side, but I had the high ground. I had 43 years of mountain experience, and I had something in the darkness behind me that terrified even me. Your call, I said quietly, but make it fast. I'm too old to stand out here arguing all night. The third trapper, silent until now, finally spoke. Older voice, measured. Marv, let's go. Not worth it. The big one, Marv, stared at me for another long moment. His jaw worked like he was chewing over his options. Then he spat in the snow. This isn't over, old man. We know what's out here. We know what we caught. He jerked his head toward his companions. Come on. They turned and started back through the forest, flashlights bobbing, boots crunching. I didn't lower the rifle until their lights disappeared completely into the trees. Even then, I waited another 5 minutes, listening, making sure they were really gone. Finally, I turned back toward the ravine. The male Sasquatch was standing exactly where I'd left him, completely motionless, eyes reflecting the moonlight like an animal's. But there was something different in his posture now. The aggressive tension was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite read. I walked back down to the injured female. She was worse, breathing more shallow, eyes barely open. The foam around her mouth had turned pink. Internal bleeding, probably. I knelt again and gripped the trap mechanism. This time I didn't try to force it. Instead, I examined the carabiner holding the chain to the root. Simple, spring-loaded gate. I could work with that. I can't get her out tonight, I said aloud, not sure if the male understood, but needing to say it anyway. But I can make this better. Give her a chance. I unclipped the carabiner, freeing the chain from the root. The trap was still clamped on her leg, but at least she wasn't anchored anymore. At least she could move if she needed to. Then I shrugged off my jacket, the heavy winter one I'd grabbed on my way out of the cabin, and draped it over her torso. It wouldn't do much, but it might help retain some body heat. The male watched every movement. I stood up slowly, retrieved my rifle, and backed away. I'm coming back, I said. Tomorrow. With help. Real help. The male didn't move, didn't acknowledge. Just stood there, massive and silent. I started the long walk back to my cabin. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally catching up. My shirt was soaked with sweat despite the freezing temperature. Halfway up the ravine, I glanced back. The male had moved to the female's side. He was touching her face gently, making soft sounds I couldn't hear from this distance. And I realized something that made my chest tighten. He'd trusted me. A human. The same species that had poisoned his mate and left her to die. He'd trusted me because he had no other choice. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my cabin, rifle across my lap, staring at the door, wondering what the hell I'd just gotten myself into, and knowing this was far from over. Dawn broke cold and gray over the Cabinet Mountains. I hadn't moved from my chair. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, untouched on the table beside me. I kept replaying the night in my head. The wood knocks, the trappers, the way that male Sasquatch had looked at me, not like an animal looks at a human, but like one person looks at another when they're asking for help. That's what scared me most. Not the size, not the strength, the intelligence. At 6 a.m., I picked up my radio and made a call I knew would change everything. "Emily, it's Jack Mercer. I need you up at my cabin. Medical emergency." Static crackled. Then her voice came through, suspicious, alert. Emily Hart had been a wilderness paramedic for 15 years. She'd patched up loggers, rescued hypothermic hikers, once even treated a hunter who'd been mauled by a mountain lion. She didn't spook easy. "What kind of emergency, Jack?" I hesitated. How do you explain this without sounding insane? "Large animal, trapped, poisoned, still alive, but not for long." "Jack, if it's a bear or a cat, you need to call Wildlife Services, not me." "It's not a bear." Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then, "I'll be there in 40 minutes. She arrived in her beat-up Cherokee, medical kit in one hand, skepticism written all over her face. Emily was 52, lean and weather-worn, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight braid. She took one look at me and frowned. "Jesus, Jack, you look like hell." "Didn't sleep." "I can see that." She set down her kit. "All right, where's this animal?" "About a mile east. Steep ravine. You're going to need to trust me on this, Emily." Her eyes narrowed. "Trust you on what?" I met her gaze. "On staying calm, on not running, on understanding that what you're about to see, it's real." She studied me for a long moment. We'd known each other for over a decade. She'd never seen me rattled. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She picked up her kit again. "Then let's go." The hike took 30 minutes. I moved slower in daylight, partly because my knees were screaming after last night, partly because I was giving Emily time to process what I'd told her on the way. "So you're saying you found a Sasquatch?" she'd said flatly. "Two of them." "Two Sasquatch?" "Yes. And one is injured in an illegal trap." "Yes." She'd gone quiet after that. I couldn't tell if she thought I was lying, crazy, or both, but she kept walking. As we approached the ravine, I raised my hand. Slow, quiet. "The male is protective. He'll be watching." "The male," Emily repeated, like she was testing the words. We descended into the clearing. The female was still there, slumped against the log, my jacket draped over her. Her breathing was worse than before, raspy, irregular. Emily froze. Her medical kit slipped from her hand and hit the snow with a muffled thump. "Oh my God." The male stepped out from behind a cluster of pines. Not aggressive, not charging, just appearing. 8 feet of dark fur and muscle, watching us with those impossibly aware eyes. Emily's hand shot out and gripped my arm. Hard. "Jack, don't run. Don't make sudden movements. Just breathe." To her credit, she didn't scream, didn't bolt. Her fingers dug into my arm like a vice, but she held her ground. The male looked at me, then at Emily, then at the injured female, and he stepped aside, allowing us to approach. "He brought me here last night," I said quietly. "He wanted me to find her, to help." Emily's breathing was fast, shallow. "This isn't possible." "I know. This is... Jack, do you understand what this is? Right now, it's a patient who's dying. You going to help or not?" That snapped her back into professional mode. Years of training overriding shock. She picked up her kit, hands trembling but functional, and moved toward the female. I stayed between her and the male, just in case. Emily knelt beside the injured Sasquatch and opened her kit. "Talk me through what you know." "Leg hold trap. Been on at least 8 hours. Poison on the mechanism, probably strychnine or antifreeze. Foam indicates toxin ingestion. Labored breathing suggests respiratory distress." She pulled out a stethoscope, hesitated, then pressed it against the female's chest. Listened. Heart rate's erratic, breathing's compromised. She's in shock. Emily looked up at me. Jack, I don't even know her physiology. I don't know what dosages are safe. I don't know. The female's eyes opened, found Emily's face, and Emily went completely still. She's looking at me. I know. No, Jack. She's looking at me, like she understands. The male made a low sound, not threatening, almost encouraging. Emily swallowed hard. Okay. I'm going to treat her like a large primate. Similar body mass to a gorilla. That's my best guess. She pulled out syringes, vials, antiseptic. Her hands steadied as she worked, muscle memory taking over. I'm administering activated charcoal suspension for the poison, broad-spectrum antibiotics for infection, morphine derivative for pain. The male watched every movement. When Emily pulled out the syringe, he tensed. I stepped slightly forward. It's medicine, to help. I don't know if he understood the words, but he seemed to understand the intent. He didn't interfere. Emily administered the injections with practiced efficiency. The female flinched, but didn't pull away, didn't strike, just endured. The trap, Emily said. We need to get it off. Together we worked the mechanism. It took both of us and a pry bar from Emily's kit, but finally, the jaws released. The female made a sound, low, pained, but also relieved. Emily immediately began cleaning and dressing the wound. This needs stitches, probably needs surgery. I can stabilize it, but the male moved closer. Emily froze. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the injured leg, at Emily's hands working on the wound, watching how she did it, learning. Jack, Emily whispered, do you see this? Yeah. This is tool use comprehension. The male's head snapped toward the tree line. His entire body went rigid. I heard it a second later. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Wood knocks. Same pattern as last night, but closer, much closer. The male positioned himself between us and the sound. His posture changed, aggressive, protective. Emily grabbed my arm again. What is that? I don't know, I said, but we need to leave. Now. We didn't leave. The wood knocks stopped after 30 seconds, just like before. The male remained tense, scanning the forest. But whatever had made those sounds didn't come closer. Emily finished bandaging the wound with shaking hands. She needs monitoring. Antibiotics every 12 hours. Wound cleaning twice daily. I'll come back, I said. We'll come back, Emily corrected. She looked at the female, then at the male. I can't leave her like this. Over the next 2 weeks, we returned every day, sometimes twice a day. And that's when things got strange. The third visit, we found the female in a different position, lying flat instead of slumped. Her injured leg elevated on a fallen branch we definitely hadn't placed there. Did you do that? Emily asked. No. We looked at the male. He was watching us from his usual spot, 15 feet away, always watching. The fifth visit, we arrived to find the female turned slightly to her left, the exact angle that gave us easier access to her wound without having to reposition her ourselves. Emily noticed it immediately. Jack, they're moving her before we get here. I know. How do they know when we're coming? I didn't have an answer for that, but I'd started to suspect one I didn't want to voice aloud. They were tracking our pattern, learning our schedule. The eighth visit confirmed it. We arrived 15 minutes earlier than usual. Emily had gotten off shift early. As we descended into the ravine, I saw the male mid-action. He was adjusting the female's position, carefully lifting her leg, repositioning it on the makeshift elevation, preparing her for our arrival. But we weren't supposed to be there yet. He froze when he saw us. For 3 long seconds, we all just stared at each other. Then he stepped back and resumed his normal watching position, like nothing had happened. Emily's voice came out barely above a whisper. He was getting her ready for us. Yeah. Jack, that's problem solving. That's anticipation. I know what it is. She turned to me, eyes wide. Do you? Do you really? Because I don't think you do. This isn't just intelligence. This is planning. This is understanding cause and effect across time. The female's wound was healing better than either of us expected. The swelling had gone down. The tissue was regenerating at a rate that seemed almost impossible. Her physiology is remarkable, Emily said on the 10th day, examining the leg. Another week and she might be able to walk. The male made a sound, soft, almost like a sigh of relief. Emily looked at him, really looked. You understand me, don't you? He didn't respond, didn't move, but his eyes never left her face. This is going to change everything, she whispered. When people find out, no one can know, I said firmly. Jack, no one. You know what happens if this gets out. Every hunter, every researcher, every government agency descends on these mountains. They become experiments, or trophies. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. On the 14th day, the female stood for the first time. Shaky, weak, but standing. The male moved to her side immediately, supporting her weight. We watched from a respectful distance. I think this is it, Emily said. I think they're ready to leave. I felt something unexpected twist in my chest. Relief, yes, but also something else. Loss. The male looked at us one final time. Then he helped the female take her first steps toward the tree line. They disappeared into the forest without looking back. Emily and I hiked back to the cabin in silence. We didn't talk about what we'd witnessed, didn't try to process it. What was there to say? I thought it was over. I thought I'd never see them again. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, I would find myself drowning in a frozen river, my lungs burning, my vision darkening, and I would feel something massive grip my jacket and pull me from the water like I weighed nothing at all. But I didn't know that yet. That day, I just walked home, made coffee, and tried to convince myself that life would go back to normal. It wouldn't. It never would again. March came to the Cabinet Mountains like a fist through glass, violent, sudden, unstoppable. Temperatures spiked 20 degrees in 3 days. Snow that had taken months to accumulate turned to slush overnight. The rivers swelled. I should have stayed at the cabin, should have waited for the melt to stabilize. But I'd found another trap line during a routine patrol, same style as the ones from January, same illegal poison markers, same bastards, probably. I've been removing them one by one, reporting locations to Fish and Wildlife. Most were on dry land, easy to dismantle and catalog. But trap number 6 was submerged in Granite Creek, wedged between 2 rocks in waist-deep current. The water was snowmelt, so cold it felt like knives against my skin, even through waders. I worked quickly, fingers already going numb as I tried to pry the trap mechanism loose. That's when I felt the current shift. Upstream, something had given way. An ice dam, probably, or a snow bridge that had been holding back runoff. I had maybe 3 seconds of warning. The wall of water hit me like a freight train. One moment I was standing, the next I was underwater, tumbling, completely disoriented. The trap forgotten, my waders filling with water, dragging me down.
I broke the surface, gasped for air, went under again. The river had me now, and the river was in no mood to let go. I slammed into a submerged log. Pain exploded through my ribs. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The current spun me, pushed me deeper. This was how I was going to die. 71 years old, drowning in a river I'd crossed 1,000 times, killed by my own stubbornness. My vision started to tunnel. The cold was inside me now, shutting down everything that wasn't essential. I stopped fighting, stopped struggling, let the water take me. Then something grabbed my jacket. Not the current, not debris, something with fingers. I was yanked upward with enough force to make my teeth crack together.
The surface broke above me, air, blessed air. And I was being pulled, dragged, hauled through the water like a rag doll. My boots scraped against rocks, shallow water, shore. I was thrown, actually thrown, onto the muddy bank. I lay there, coughing up river water, ribs screaming, every muscle in my body shaking. Hypothermia was already setting in. I could feel it in the way my thoughts were starting to slow, disconnect. A massive shadow fell over me. I looked up. The male Sasquatch stood there, dripping, breathing hard. Water streamed from his fur. His chest heaved like he'd been running, or swimming against a current strong enough to kill a man. We stared at each other. I tried to speak, couldn't. My jaw was shaking too hard. He made a sound, low, rumbling. Then he did something I'll never forget. He turned and walked to the tree line, broke off several large pine branches with his bare hands, came back and began piling them around me. Shelter, insulation. He was trying to keep me warm. "How?" I managed through chattering teeth. "How did you?" He didn't answer, just continued working, moving with purpose, efficiency. When the branches were piled high enough to block the wind, he stopped, looked at me one more time. Then he turned and walked back toward the forest. "Wait!" I called out. My voice was weak, barely audible over the rush of the river. He paused, didn't turn around. "Thank you." His shoulders shifted slightly. An acknowledgement, maybe. Or maybe just the wind moving through his fur. Then he was gone. I don't know how long I lay there in that makeshift shelter. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time felt broken, unreliable. Eventually I managed to stand. Stumbled back toward my cabin, legs barely working, hypothermia making every step a negotiation with consciousness. I made it. Barely. Spent the next 3 days in bed with a fever that should have killed me. Emily came by, pumped me full of antibiotics, threatened to airlift me to a hospital. I refused. Because I knew something now. Something that changed everything I thought I understood about debt, about balance, about what it meant to share these mountains with something that wasn't quite animal and wasn't quite human. We were even now, the male and I. I'd saved his mate. He'd saved me. The account was balanced. I thought that would be the end of it, but 3 days after my fever broke, I was standing on my porch at dawn when I saw them. 2 shapes on a distant ridge, tall, unmistakable, just standing there, watching. I raised my hand, a small gesture, acknowledgement. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the male, I was sure it was him, lifted his arm, mirrored my gesture, and then they turned and disappeared into the wilderness. I never saw them again. The weeks after the river incident passed in a strange, hollow quiet. I went about my routines, checking trap lines, monitoring fire conditions, maintaining the trails. Everything exactly as it had been before. But nothing felt the same. Emily stopped by every few days, ostensibly to check on my recovery. But I knew what she really wanted to talk about. "Have you seen them?" she'd ask. Every time. No. "Any signs? Tracks? Vocalizations?" Nothing. She'd nod, disappointed but not surprised. Maybe they migrated, moved to a different territory. Maybe. But I didn't think so. I'd spent 43 years in these mountains. I knew when something was watching. Knew the difference between empty forest and occupied wilderness. They were still here, just keeping their distance. In early April, I found something that confirmed it. I was hiking a ridge trail when I noticed a tree marked with deep, vertical scratches, too high for a bear, too deliberate for natural damage. The bark had been stripped away in 4 parallel lines, fresh, maybe a day old. 20 yards further, I found a clearing where the undergrowth had been disturbed. Not trampled randomly, but arranged. Branches laid in a specific pattern, almost like... I stopped, stepped back. From this angle, the pattern made sense. The branches formed an arrow, pointing west, away from my cabin, away from the main trails. Leave us alone. The message was clear. I stood there for a long time, looking at those arranged branches. Part of me wanted to follow, wanted to see them one more time, wanted answers to the 1,000 questions that had been building in my mind since that first night. But I understood what they were telling me. The debt was paid, the crisis was over, and now we needed to return to what we'd always been. Separate species, sharing the same mountains, but keeping our distance. It was the right thing to do. It was also one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I turned around and hiked back to my cabin. That night, I sat on my porch with a whiskey I'd been saving for no particular occasion. The stars were sharp and clear above the pines. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. I thought about that first night, the knocking on my door, the deliberate rhythm that had pulled me out of my chair and into the strangest 2 months of my life. I thought about the male's eyes, the intelligence there, the calculation, the awareness that had unsettled me more than his size or strength ever could. I thought about Emily's words, "This is going to change everything." But it wouldn't, not if I had anything to say about it, because I understood something now that I hadn't before. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed. And some encounters are meant to remain exactly what they were: brief, impossible, and completely unverifiable. 2 weeks later, a ranger found the illegal trap line I'd been dismantling. 3 men were arrested trying to retrieve their equipment: Marv, Kyle, and the older one, whose name I never learned. They claimed they'd been hunting something big, something that had injured Kyle's brother the previous winter. No one believed them. The traps were confiscated. The men were fined and banned from Montana public lands for 5 years. Emily submitted her findings to a wildlife journal, carefully edited, all references to Sasquatch removed. Just a case study on treating large mammal trap injuries in remote wilderness conditions. It was published in June. Life went back to normal. Except sometimes, late at night, I'd hear sounds in the forest. Wood knocks, distant and faint. Or I'd find trees marked with scratches too high for bears. And I'd know they were still out there, still watching, still keeping the boundary we'd silently agreed upon. The last time I saw them was in late May. I was hiking back from a fire watch tower, taking a route that skirted the edge of the wilderness area. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and red. I stopped to catch my breath. 71-year-old lungs don't climb like they used to. And that's when I saw them. On a ridge, maybe half a mile away, two figures, standing side by side. The female was walking normally now, no limp, no sign of injury. They weren't doing anything, just standing there, looking at me. I knew what this was. Goodbye. I raised my hand, held it there. The male raised his. We stood like that for maybe 30 seconds. Two species, two worlds, connected by something I still don't have words for. Then they turned and walked into the forest. I watched until they disappeared completely. Then I finished my hike home. That should be the end of the story. Two creatures saved, a debt repaid, a boundary respected. Clean, simple, the kind of ending people want to hear. But the truth is messier than that. Because what I didn't tell you, what I haven't told anyone, not even Emily, is what happened in the weeks after that final sighting. The dreams started in June. Not nightmares exactly, more like memories that weren't mine. I'd see the forest from impossible heights, feel the weight of muscle and fur that didn't belong to my body, smell things human noses weren't designed to detect, the approach of a storm 3 days away, the fear scent of prey, the chemical markers of territorial boundaries. I'd wake up disoriented, convinced for those first few seconds that I was supposed to be somewhere else, something else. It faded over time, but it never completely went away. Emily noticed the change in me. "You're different," she said one afternoon in July. We were sitting on my porch, drinking coffee, watching storm clouds build over the mountains. "How so?" "Quieter, more, I don't know, distant." She looked at me with concern. "Are you all right, Jack?" I wanted to tell her about the dreams, about the way I'd started noticing things I'd missed before, the patterns in animal behavior, the subtle changes in the forest that signaled something's presence, the sounds that weren't quite natural. "But how do you explain that you've started seeing the world through different eyes?" "I'm fine," I said. "Just getting old." She didn't believe me, but she let it go. In August, I found something that made my blood run cold. I was checking a trail camera I'd set up to monitor elk migration. When I reviewed the footage, there was a clip from 3:47 a.m., 2 weeks prior. The male Sasquatch, walking directly toward the camera. He stopped, looked straight into the lens, and I swear, there was recognition in those eyes. Like he knew I'd be watching this. Like he wanted me to know he was still there. Then he reached up and adjusted the camera angle, slightly, maybe 3 degrees. The next frame showed why. A group of hikers passing through at dawn. They walked right past where the male had been standing, completely unaware. He'd moved the camera so I could see them, so I could verify they'd passed through safely. He was still protecting this territory, still watching, still keeping the balance. I deleted the footage, removed the camera. Some things aren't meant to be documented. September brought the first snow, earlier than usual. I spent most of my time indoors, reading, drinking too much coffee, trying not to think about what I'd experienced, trying not to wonder what it meant. Emily called in October. "I'm leaving Montana. Took a job in Oregon. Better pay, less isolation." "When?" "End of the month." A pause. "Come with me, Jack. You've been up here alone for too long. It's not good for you." I looked out my window at the mountains, the pines heavy with snow, the wilderness stretching endlessly in all directions. "This is my home," I said. "I know, but maybe it's time for a change." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. She was right, in a way. The isolation was getting to me. The dreams, the strange awareness, the constant feeling of being watched. It was wearing me down. But I couldn't leave, because someone needed to stay. Someone needed to keep removing those illegal traps. Someone needed to watch for the trappers who'd inevitably return. Someone needed to maintain the boundary between their world and ours. And I'd been chosen for that role. Not by choice, not by chance, but by a knock on my door one freezing night in January. A knock that changed everything. Emily left in November. We didn't say goodbye in person. She left a note on my porch. "Take care of yourself, old man, and take care of them." She knew. Maybe she'd always known. Winter deepened. The snow piled higher. The temperatures dropped into the negatives. And one night in December, almost exactly a year after that first encounter, I heard it again. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Wood knocks. Distant, deliberate. Not a threat, a reminder. We're still here, still watching, still trusting you to hold the line. I pulled on my coat, grabbed my rifle, and stepped out into the snow. The forest was silent, waiting. I stood on my porch for a long time, listening to the wind move through the pines. Then I went back inside, poured another whiskey, and sat by the fire. Some responsibilities you don't choose. Some debts never fully close. And some encounters mark you in ways that never fade. I'm 72 now, still alone in these mountains, still keeping watch, still honored by a trust I never asked for, but would never betray. I'm telling you this story for a reason, not because I expect you to believe it. Most won't. Most will say I'm a crazy old man who spent too many years alone in the wilderness, who let isolation and age twist reality into something it never was. And maybe they're right, but I need to tell it anyway. Because last week, something happened that made me realize this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. I was checking a section of forest near Granite Creek, the same area where I nearly drowned. The snow was deep, pristine, undisturbed. Except for one set of tracks. Massive, bipedal, fresh. But that's not what stopped me cold. Next to the tracks, pressed into the snow, was a pattern I recognized immediately. Branches arranged in a specific shape. The same arrow design I'd seen a year ago. Only this time, it was pointing toward my cabin. Come home. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to understand what it meant. Was it a warning? An invitation? A threat? Then I heard it. Faint, almost lost in the wind. A sound I hadn't heard in months. Wood knocks. But different this time. Faster, more urgent. Something's wrong. Look, I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking right now. But before you click away, before you dismiss this as the ramblings of an old man, just hear me out. If you're still with me, if something about this story feels true to you, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you next, you're going to want to follow. I'm hiking out there tomorrow morning. Against every rational thought in my head, I'm going to follow those tracks. See what they're trying to tell me. Maybe I'll find nothing. Maybe I'll find something that finally breaks this mystery wide open. Or maybe I'll find something I'm not ready to understand. But here's what I know for certain. Whatever's out there in the Cabinet Mountains, it's real, it's intelligent, and it's watching all of us more closely than we realize. The question isn't whether they exist. The question is, what happens when more people start believing? When the trappers come back with better equipment? When the researchers arrive with their drones and thermal cameras? When the government decides that confirmation is more valuable than protection? What happens to them then? I think about that a lot these days. I think about the male Sasquatch pulling me from that river. About the trust in his eyes when he let Emily treat his mate. About the intelligence that planned, that communicated, that chose mercy over violence even when violence would have been easier. And I think about what we do to things we don't understand. How we cage them, study them, destroy them. That's why I need you to listen. That's why I need witnesses. Drop a comment below. Tell me if you've ever seen something in the wilderness you couldn't explain. If you've felt watched. If you've found tracks that shouldn't exist. You're not alone. And you're not crazy. There are more of us than you think. Someone needs to remember this. Someone needs to understand that these mountains hold more than we acknowledge. That intelligence comes in forms we don't expect. That respect and distance might be the greatest gifts we can offer. Tomorrow, I'm going to find out what they need from me now. Tomorrow, I'm going to learn if the boundary we established still holds, or if something's changed, something dangerous. I'll tell you what I find, I promise you that. But tonight, I'm sitting on my porch, rifle across my lap, watching the tree line, waiting for wood knocks that may or may not come. 72 years old, alone in the wilderness, trusted by something I can't explain, with a responsibility I can't escape. My name is Jack Mercer, and this is the story I needed to tell before I walk back into those woods one more time. Whatever happens next, you'll be the first to know. If you're subscribed. The mountains are calling, and I've never been good at ignoring that call.